my source to porch was Hershey's failure to get the Hershey's to your porch.
Well,
That's what.
I'm glad that you brought that up because my
Wow.
story is on the chocolate crisis. I don't know
Yes.
if you have been watching this, but it is really fascinating, and I did a deep dive on it last night and this morning. So I'm gonna. Have you ever seen how chocolate is made? Like where it comes from?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, it's
Well, so we
for
if you go back like 2 or 3 episodes of the stock out, we touch on this a little bit because yeah, it's the prices are insane right now.
Yes, the most out of chocolate prices or cacao prices are or cacao trees. So I guess the cocoa that comes from them is trading higher right now than copper. And it's very there's a lot of backstory with it. So if you've never seen where chocolate comes from, I'm going to be playing a video. Sorry for the folks who are listening to the podcast version. I'm going to play this video as I talk over it of just giving some context into. Of course, I can't talk about a source to porch story without talking about some kind of like historical backstory to it. So hit play and then talk over it. Hopefully, there's no volume. Okay, good. Okay, so it's showing like where chocolate comes from. But basically, a little bit of the backstory is that it's a crop native to Central and South America. Like many things, it was very difficult to harvest, so it became a drink for the rich. It also became a form of currency, and that's going to be important here in a second. So the pods are essentially grown on the offshoots of branches of a cacao tree. They look like giant gourds in case you've never seen them. Like it looks
Yeah.
very like alien like the cacao trees. So they look like a gourd. It's kind of like a pumpkin. So they have like the very like hard shell outside, and then you break it open, and inside is like the pulp and like the seeds. So inside it's like the white pulp that surrounds the bean itself, which is removed, fermented, and dried in the sun for a few days, where like the outer crust kind of flakes off and you're left with the actual bean. This bean, from a historical perspective, was super easy to transport, especially compared to other commodities. So it was an ideal crop during colonization when Spain would first start taking the beans back home and sharing it with other wealthy people within Spain. But because it was also seen as currency, it was used by a lot of groups throughout Central and South America. And so Spain, all of their fleets, they would just go up and down the coast trying to meet new tribes, trying to meet new groups, new people throughout Mesoamerica. And when they were doing that, they were using the beans as sort of a way to kind of, break bread with them and, buy things from them because they were using it as a form of currency. This was also during the time that they're scouting for natural resources and they're trying to find out, more gold and silver and, just trying to use the cocoa bean as a way to get them to do that or to get them to trade with them or to, just, I guess, steal it from them. This was also during the slave trade era where Spain was obviously, other countries, obviously the English, France, the US, of course, but they were, shipping these beans or the plants itself to African countries, specifically Western African countries like Ghana, the Ivory Coast, and they were forcing them to grow this crop because with the cacao trees it's it's a very very sensitive plant. It takes 4 to 5 years in order for that plant to start fruiting where you get these gourds like what you're seeing here, and
Hmm.
it takes that long. They're also really susceptible to pests, and so it makes it really challenging to grow. And it's also like you have to be like within 20 degrees of like the equator. That's the optimal places where it's going to grow really well. So fast forward to present day, this crop has a global demand with total sales around 116 billion. That's doubled since 2009. And this $116 billion number is expected to still grow about 3.4% year over year, mostly fueled by the growth of dark chocolate, especially among, healthy folks that want to eat chocolate, but they want to do it in a healthier way. Most of the big companies like Cadbury, Hershey, Nestle, they use what's called a bean to bar model, while others use a buy the bar and mix it into their own proprietary blends. So they're just buying like a Hershey bar, or they're buying like a Nestle bar, and then they just blend that into their own proprietary blends and then sell that. West Africa, the Ivory Coast, Ghana in particular, is responsible for around 73% of the total chocolate sales, but they outsource the processing. And apparently, where a lot of the money is made is in the processing. So, of course, you have a situation where, 73% of the market comes out of Western African countries. And so when one thing affects them, it affects a lot of the just global market of having, just having this commodity that you're going to be able to buy. So what happened in last year is that Ghana and the Ivory Coast experienced an El Nino effect where they had
Yeah.
a lot of rain, and that rain caused a lot of the trees to just not be suitable for fruiting conditions. There's also a pest that is, when you have a lot of rains, it's more susceptible to get that pest. And when you have that pest, the entire farm is just ruined. You have to uproot the trees and then burn the fields and then start over. And it takes 4 to 5 years for those crops to become fruiting again. So what's happening is a lot of like illegal gold miners are now coming into those farmlands and saying, hey, we'll give you regular money to let us dig on your property. And then if you let us dig on your property, then then you don't have to, you're going to get regular income. You don't have to worry about being a farmer anymore, because farmers are making the least out of everyone. A lot of child labor is also involved in farming cocoa. And so keeping those, I guess, extenuating circumstances in mind, like these people, like they're already not making a lot of money by farming this commodity. And then you have some other, nefarious actors that are coming in and taking advantage of the other natural resources that they have on their land by taking gold. And that's just an easy fix for them. And it's a guaranteed source of revenue. So it's really like a particular situation that they have found themselves in, where these farmers, they're only getting out of that, 116 billion. They currently only get about 20 to 30% of that total market. And then it's just all of these extenuating circumstances where now we have entered into the chocolate crisis because of those different weather patterns, because of all the sort of geopolitical issues that are going on. So we have this astronomical increase in pricing for chocolate. And I mean, if you're looking at the screen, like it hit $10,000, which, I was listening to Odd Lots podcast, and they said typically commodities trade around the $5,000 mark. A record was actually set in 1977 for chocolate prices that hit the $5,000 mark, but now we are double. So now it's finally at the $10,000 mark. And just to keep things kind of in perspective, this is a lot of the farmers aren't incentivized to grow. They also, Ghana, Ivory Coast, they want to take more control of the processing of it, because that's where they make more money. And so a lot of these bigger conglomerates like the Hershey's of the world, Nestle's, Cadbury, a lot of these big conglomerates are buying up the chocolate reserves, but then also under investing in the farms themselves. So it's like, this perfect storm of bad events that are coming through that are causing cocoa prices to surge more than 250% over the last year, surging to $10,000 per metric ton. That's $10,000 per metric ton, nearly double the record high set 46 years ago. It's more money right now for chocolate than it is copper. So it's really that's my source to porch story, where this year we're going to be facing with shrinkflation, and then also the higher prices for some of your favorite chocolate goods. Apparently there's also like just this insane market of people who buy like super high end chocolate where it's like the tiniest piece. This Odd Lots episode costs like $35 because it has to go through so much different processing and shipping. But the actual growers, the actual farmers of that product don't really see a lot of the benefits for that. Like I said, they're making around 20 to 30% of that $116 billion number. And a lot of that funnels through the government. So the government, some of these countries don't exactly, I mean, not to say that the US does either, but some of these countries don't exactly operate on the up and up. And so they make their own personal side deals with the bigger conglomerates, like the bigger chocolate companies. And so they get their kickbacks. And then the farmers who are actually doing the majority of the work suffer the ramifications of that. And then when the market prices dramatically increase like this, they're not seeing those profits because it's a controlled market for countries like Ghana and Ivory Coast, where it works well when the price is low because farmers get a certain amount of money, but when the price goes sky high like it is now, they're not getting any extra money, and you
Yeah.
have a situation where you have these big companies that are hoarding the cocoa beans for their own benefit. So yeah, that is the chocolate crisis that's going on. So if you see cheap chocolate out there, I guess beware. But then also just know that it's probably not the best. I heard that Cadbury like changed their chocolate source from Ghana to somebody else, and just the Cadbury chocolate fans just had an uprising, like went to social media, like complained about it, and got Cadbury to change back to Ghana as their chocolate supplier.
Yeah, it's a big issue. We talked about it, like you said, a couple weeks ago on the stock out, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So, like you said, watch for this shrinkflation, or prices are just going to stay high on that for a period of time. So I mean that's what struggle is when it's a food source, right? That you technically can't you get year round, but unfortunately want year round. So.